It seems that there is no difference between Republicans and Democrats when it comes to these wars. In fact, Barack Obama's tripled the number of troops in Afghanistan, and Republicans are pushing him to commit even longer. We've been there for over a decade, Ron.
Yeah, and this is the bad part of bipartisanship. Foreign policy is always bipartisan. And, you know, give Obama his due, because he didn't deny that he wanted to fight in Afghanistan. That's the good war. That's the long war. And he did state that in the campaign. But he has no intention of leaving. And we have no intention of leaving Iraq until we totally go broke, and we have to leave like the Soviets did. Our empire will end for financial reasons, but it is total chaos. There's no stability in Iraq. I mean, today there was an article, I think, in the New York Times, the last Christians about to leave there. As bad as it was before, this is the first time in the history of Christendom that the Christians had to leave Iraq. I mean, it is horrible, and there's no peace there. And Iraq and Afghanistan is getting worse. The war is spreading into Pakistan, and there's more than just Obama. There's somebody that designates what foreign policy is all about, regardless of the party. So whether it's the Federal Reserve and monetary policy, whether it's the foreign policy or the welfare spending, there's way too much bipartisanship, because philosophically both parties endorse these positions, and now there's nobody capable of backing off. So that's why we're going to have the bankruptcy before we come to our senses.
How do you balance the budget, and how short a time do you think you can do it? And do you think the country would be ready to say, okay, we're going to give up Social Security and Medicare and all these other things? Because I believe you would support that.
Yeah, we would. I don't think anybody could get that through, because I think we'll have an economic collapse, and then we'll have to start over again. That's a bigger story. But if we had our ability to do it, I would address one subject that we agree to disagree on, and that is, I would cut a lot of this spending overseas. I mean, we have too much stuff, and why do we support Obama going into Libya and all this stuff? It's just way too much. You could cut a lot.
Do we have a war on terror, though? Is that real in your mind?
Yeah, but you have to understand where the terrorism goes. I know Michael Schur comes on Fox at times. I don't know whether you've had him on there. Sure. I read him very seriously. I consider him the most intelligent person and most knowledgeable person about Osama bin Laden. And he has a new book, you know, out of that. So I think looking at that means that our foreign policy does have something to do with our problems and our dangers that we face here. But I don't see that.
Well, when you say that, I think people interpret that we incite the attacks against us. The conclusion of the 9/11 Commission was they were at war with us, but we're not at war with them.
Yeah, but the 9/11 Commission also recognized that there was a blowback phenomenon. The fact that we were over there and had a base in Saudi Arabia was part of it, and Osama bin Laden said that, and we immediately after 9/11 removed the troops from Saudi Arabia. We closed that base down.
But isn't it
the 9/11 report recognized that.
But if they're at war with us for a decade and we're not at war with them, do you not agree that there is a desire among Islamic extremists to have an Islamic caliphate, Sharia law, and conquering the world? Because that's their stated goal.
Yeah,
I mean, that's what they say they want.
But I think it'd be this many, but because we're over there, their numbers grow. That is what you have radicals in all religions, and if there's some way to incite them, their numbers will grow. Right. So their numbers have grown, but they use us to do that, and they say, "Oh, they're over here. We support all these."
I think they hated us. You said about the Ground Zero mosque issue that you thought that this was a religious freedom issue. And I have a real problem when the families, and you said, you know, you were raising the question about who's, you know, raising the question just why and what's driving the people that were opposing it. Now, if we look at Imam Rayouf, guy that wants America to be Sharia compliant, that thinks Osama bin Laden is made in the USA, and we're partly responsible for what happened, you're not concerned about the families of 9/11 and their reaction after losing their loved ones?
But I'm also concerned about guilt by association and blanket guilt by a group. And if that goes through and you say you can't do it because it's Muslim and there were some bad Muslims over here and they did this means you blame the religion. And you don't want to blame the religion, but in order to do that, I mean, if something happened that it had been a Catholic or something like that did it, would you think, oh, that's a good idea? We don't want, because he was a Catholic and he did bad things, and therefore we can't allow a Catholic church to be built in a certain area.
But when I listen to you, I hear you talk about first founding principles. which, by the way, are really important. And I think that's the area that I would find an agreement with you. The difference is that the imam, while we believe in free speech, believes in a value system. When he says he wants America to be Sharia compliant, it's the antithesis. Wait a second. This is important. It is the antithesis of everything we believe in. Women don't have rights. They don't drive. They get stoned to death. They need 4 male eyewitnesses if they're raped. They don't get to go to school
but that's not coming here. We have to
that's
stay
what
with.
he wants.
That's what we have to do, is defend our principles. And actually, the principle here is a private property principle. We shouldn't have governments building buildings and telling people where to build. It should be a private property issue. If you own that land over there, you shouldn't be told what you can build on there. And if you want to rent it to any type of religion, you should be able to. And you can't have guilt by association.
It's not guilt by association. The words of this guy on 60 Minutes, that if somebody wants America Sharia compliant, Sharia by its very nature as applied, is one that denies women rights.
But that's a different issue entirely. I mean, that goes on in Saudi Arabia, but
he wants that in America, is what he said.
I know.
So he's fighting for that.
But then you defend it by a better idea. You defend it by the Constitution. They can't do that.
By opening the door, isn't that opening the door for somebody who wants to overthrow America into a system that is contrary to our fundamental beliefs?
I think you're closing the door on what makes America great: property rights and the fact that you don't have people guilty because they belong to a group. And you don't have everybody guilty because of something horrible that has happened.
Later this morning, we will be debating and voting on 2 resolutions dealing with Libya. The first one, H.J. Res. 68, has been said to be one that literally endorses exactly what the president has been doing, and I agree with that. Even though it excludes ground troops, it doesn't talk about special forces, CIA, contractors, and unlimited bombing, which is really what we have to restrict. But the second one, H.R. 2278, has been said to be more strongly worded in restraint on the president, and this is where I disagree. I believe the wording is different, and it says no funds for ground troops, but then it has exceptions, and the exceptions are for all the things that we're already doing. So I believe if we vote and pass the second one, it will be the first time this Congress has given authority to the president for what he is doing right now. So I urge my colleagues to look at both of these carefully. I have concluded that not only should the first one be voted down, but it's very important that the second one be voted down as well. I have a lot of complaints about how we deal with the issue of war. This is a debate that should have gone on 4 months ago before the war was started, and if we'd have done this properly, we wouldn't be bringing this up quickly. No committee work, no discussion, no chance for amendment. But nevertheless, I will support the rule because at least we get a chance to talk a little bit about what's going on in Libya. We have 2 resolutions that will come up under this rule. The first resolution, generally I understand most individuals aren't too keen on this because it's a literal endorsement. It's a rather explicit endorsement of the war, and I obviously would be opposed to H.J. Res. 68. But my greatest concern is about H.R. 2278. Because the way I read this resolution is that it essentially grants the same authority that we grant in the first one, because we say that no funds can be used, deny the use of funds, but how can you deny the use of appropriated funds when they're using funds that weren't appropriated? It's so redundant. The funds were never appropriated, so yes, it's a good statement. No funds, you don't continue to be illegal is what we're saying. But what I'm concerned about are the exceptions. All the exceptions are for the things that they're doing, like search and rescue, intelligence gathering, renaissance, surveillance, refueling, operations planning, and doing everything except pulling the trigger. So we're legalizing that. I believe that H.R. 2278 is the first time that we in the Congress are making a statement that we are granting authority to the president to pursue this particular war. So I am in strong opposition to that resolution as well, although I understand the other side of the argument because it says denial of funds. But, the resolution actually says that, the main reason, the author of the resolution said, the reason why we have the exception is to protect the integrity of our contract or agreement with NATO. Well, in the resolution said we have to stop the funding because we don't want to support NATO's war. So it's totally inconsistent, makes no sense whatsoever, but it reminds me of the War Powers Resolution. You know, after the Vietnam War, we didn't want to get into that kind of war anymore. So they come along to Congress, and it's an infinite wisdom with great, good intentions, designs the War Powers Resolution, which legalized war for 90 days. That's part of the reason why we're here. We're worrying about 90 days, but here we're going into the 4th month dealing with the War Powers Resolution. There's a simple solution to all of this, and that is obey the Constitution, don't allow our presidents to go to war without a declaration of war, and we wouldn't be facing this problem of this debate that actually gets a little bit silly on restraining the president. Yes, we should. We should exert ourselves. We have the prerogatives. We have the obligations.
Time has
and we
expired.
have avoided it. It's time to stand up for the rule of law.
All right, well, let me tell you something. You've got so much support out there, and people want to know where can they go to get more information, because you are a big-time contender for the 2012 presidential election. So where should they log on to?
Ron Paul 2012.
There you go. As simple as that. See, this guy just tells it like it is. Fantastic. Congressman, always a pleasure. Thanks so much for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope as you go forward and get into debates with more of these neocon chicken hawk draft dodgers, that you remind them that you're the candidate with the troops on your side. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Good to be with you.